Alright, Oda just keeps building and building upon everything in the final saga, and I'm really excited to see where Egghead goes now. Because honestly, with all these developments, with Vegapunk disappearing, with Stussy being a clone of Miss Buckingham, and obviously, Weevil showing up on Sphinx and getting captured, I'm very interested to see where it goes. Also, trying to redeem Green Bull by saying he took out Weevil. I don't know. I feel like if you were going to do that, you'd have to use a character that we are aware of. So we don't know how strong Weevil is. So it's not a good or a bad thing for Green Bull, personally, in my opinion. But obviously, the most important thing in this chapter was Kizaru has a fifth Elder Star with him. Well, I don't know, one of the Elder Stars. And it's the Santa Claus looking fella, and he's called Saturn. So we can assume now that all of the five elders have some sort of, planetary name. Which a lot of people were saying. There was this theory going around, I'm sure I retweeted it on Twitter somewhere, about the idea of, them fighting the supernovas on the roof, because there was 5 of them, and then there's five Elder Stars. That's something interesting. I might make a full video about if I can think of some interesting ideas for that at some point. But it's I do want to have the 5 elders be actually combat ready, because in my opinion, they kind of have to be, right? Because they are defending Emu, the one true king of this world. And I feel like if they're not combat ready, then what's the fucking point, right? What are they gonna do at that point? Yeah, are they gonna just let Emu do all the work? He's supposed to not show up, but if there is an actual genuine threat, they need to be able to fight. And I think, of course, they're coming here for Vegapunk, but I wonder if the fifth Elder Star knows about the Sun God, and is he coming to confront the Sun God himself? Maybe we will see a less in control Luffy. We might hear more. We might hear more about devil fruits. We might see more of the actual creature within the fruit, or whoever it was, or the spirit within the fruit, and he might come out, or Luffy might hear his voice, or something like that, and he might talk to the 5 Elder Stars in some form. It kind of confirms the idea that Shanks is 100% Celestial Dragon, because how the hell is he allowed into the chambers? They had to check the food he was eating on a government ship for poisoning, but yet Shanks was allowed into the chambers without much resistance at all. So there has to be something going on. Now, I personally think that I think the God Valley thing makes sense, of course, but I kind of want there to be a bit of a shift. We heard about, is it going to be where Shanks is a direct relation to one of the 5 elders, maybe their families, or is it he's directed to Emu himself? Obviously, if you watch my top 30, I talked about Shanks, and I talked about how I hope that he's on the level of Emu, he's a human that's on the level of Emu. And I think that'd be a very interesting fight. And I want to see where that ceiling is. So for me, when I see Shanks 5 all out, that's going to be how I view Emu. Maybe slightly stronger, but that's kind of where I view Emu to be. Shanks is that ceiling. I kind of just thought about that recently, but it's something I definitely stand by now. Obviously before, last year, I was big into the whole Mihawk being stronger than Shanks, because it wasn't Luffy's final opponent, so Mihawk was able to be stronger than Shanks, because this was Zoro's final opponent, but it wasn't. But Shanks was never going to be Luffy's final opponent. So I'm interested to see where it goes, but we'll see. But more importantly, Vegapunk just disappeared, and this could be a multitude of many things. Obviously, they went and saw Kuma's memories, and what I think might have happened here is that Bonnie went to look at Kuma's memories, Vegapunk jumped in to try and stop her, and either when you go into that bubble, they might have just gone into the bubble and they're experiencing his backstory, and that's how we're going to get it. Or when they went into the bubble, they transported somewhere that is important to Kuma while they were experiencing his memories. It could be the Sorbet Kingdom. It could be where Kuma is right now. More likely, it's probably they're just inside the bubble experiencing all his memories. And I'd assume it's going to flash back to that at some point, and we're going to get a look into where he was and what he was doing, and all that sort of stuff. I also like the idea that this Vegapunk is actually not the main Vegapunk. I actually like that idea that what is it? The one in the mask is the main Vegapunk, because people were saying, well, he's wearing a mask, and usually in One Piece when you're wearing a mask, there's something important to hide. The only time that wasn't the case was Who's Who, where Who's Who wasn't really hiding anything, to be honest. He wasn't that important or anything like that. There wasn't anything to be done, but I am definitely really excited to see where this goes. I hope Kuma is a really interesting character. I hope they do him very well. I'm sure they will, of course. You know, Oda doesn't really miss very often, to be fair, unless it's Kaido. But then I saw him with this every single time I talk about One Piece ever. But Kaido, every time I sit and think about him, I'm like, if you read between the lines, he's a very interesting character. But I think it was just because he gave us a backstory that was so underwhelming. Like, if he just gave us nothing, you'd kind of understand, alright, he's waiting for rocks. You know, he had to have Kaido here, but all of his backstory stuff has to be involved with rocks to some degree. So he's just leaving that. You know, we get in between the lines during the Odin flashback, and we get different things in the Yamato flashback, and that kind of subsidizes it enough. To be honest, I think giving us the backstory at all just kind of ruined the feel of it. Kind of like, you know, oh, is this it? Whereas if he gave us nothing, you'd still be waiting, and you'd be like, he's gonna be important to some degree. Now we'll see how it plays out, and I'll leave my final judgment for that. But I don't know. The more the story goes on, the more I keep thinking about what role he's going to play, what's going on. Because the Rocks Pirates are showing up now. So we could have had, you know, Kaido's backstory be a gateway into these people showing up, like Miss Buckingham, for example. Also, I don't know about you, but I hope Miss Buckingham has like the awakened version, or not Miss Buckingham, but Stussy has the awakened version of Robin's fruit, because if Robin has like a demon fruit, that would be so sick. I'm not gonna lie, I would love that shit. I would like the Demonio, a smaller version of the Demonio, like a hybrid form where Demonio is just like with the wings and stuff like Stussy has. I think that'd be so cool. It'd be also really good for merchandise and like combat, bro. Combat. She flying around like a demon, like shit, like fucking biting people like that. That shit would be so good. I would love that, to be honest with you. I'm excited to see what happens here. There's a lot to be done. And actually, I wanted to talk about this for a little while. This is something I kind of noticed, right? Where Zoro attacks the clones, and obviously he goes, oh, you're different to the Paramecia because you have a bit of humanity left in you. But he didn't specifically say Paramecia, I'm just putting that together. But what I wanted to view it as was, oh, you're different to the other Mihawk. You have a bit of humanity left in you. And I was like, oh, I thought, oh, if this is referring to Mihawk, this would be a very interesting way to approach it. What's up with Mihawk? Because he has those eyes, you know, those special eyes that Emu has, sort of deal. And having it so it's like, okay, so those eyes indicate some lack of humanity or some lack of a soul. I don't know. It could be interesting to see where they go about it. Obviously, being Ginger, I'm a pro at knowing when people have no souls, of course, as my own, of course. But what can you do? Still, it's interesting to know, to be fair, because there's so much you could take away from it. And I hope Zoro gets more and more put into his story, because I keep thinking about, because obviously the Yamato flashback episode just happened in the anime, and we had it in the manga about a year ago. That character, man, I think it's going to be a thing where it's like his brother, right? It's Zoro's like older brother or something. And when Zoro was like a baby or a young child, they sent him off away from Wano as Kaido, as Odin died, right? And that was his last action. He sent his young child away from Wano to the East Blue because he knew that's where the Shiramosuke village was. Because they're descendants in some degree, right? And then obviously because everyone knew what Ushimaru looked like, and they knew that it was his child, or he left a note, and then they raised Zoro like that. I think that's going to be how it works in some degree, or maybe they ostracize Zoro, I don't know. But I do think that this is probably his older brother. I don't think it's an uncle. People always talk about uncles and stuff, and I don't know how I feel about that. I just think an older brother would make more sense. A more direct relation that you can have to Zoro, more than an uncle. Because then you'd be like, I don't think they're ever going to reveal Zoro's parents, and I don't think they need to, right? You could say they died in a battle, or they died much earlier. I just prefer the idea of it being Zoro's older brother rather than his uncle. I don't know. I feel like if you were gonna make it his uncle, you could have just made it his father at that point. But we know they're not father and son, thanks to what Oda said. So I think an older brother is more accurate, to say the least. But I'm excited to see if that ever gets brought up. And I think they're putting a focus on each individual Straw Hat this arc and kind of focusing on different elements of him. Zoro's just kind of there, just doing his job as a bodyguard with Brook and stuff. But I hope they address all the stuff that happened in 1.0, like the ghost thing showing up, and we get more about Enma, like, because obviously he's fighting the Seraphim Mihawk, so hopefully that will bring it out in him. And then Sanji was weird, bro. He was acting like a cat this chapter. He jumps out and he's on like Edison's back like a cat, and his eyes are like all catty, and he's like, "Oh, you mean this?" And it's like he's like Edison, and I'm like, "What the hell is going on with Sanji?" He's going through a midlife crisis right now. You know, I wonder what they're gonna do with Sanji though. Like, how are they gonna approach it? Obviously, he has to have some changes to his body, but how is it gonna be done? How are they going to have it where he's still the Sanji we know, but also he's had some changes that we need to address, and it needs to be brought full circle next time he meets Judge, or next time he meets Vegapunk to some degree. Like, Vegapunk hasn't even brought up the fact that he's Judge's kid, so I hope, like, Vegapunk has been so important to each of the Straw Hats in one way or another, but yeah, he hasn't really talked about any of that stuff. So I do hope he comes along, because I want to see what his thoughts are on many of these points, right? I'm just really excited, to be honest with you. There's a lot in this chapter to like dissect and talk about that I hope I'll get to at some point. But it's just, I don't know, there's so much to be said. And obviously with Stussy, back to Miss Buckingham, like obviously with her being a freeloader, yeah? Like, are we gonna have her be a freeloader of Rocks as well? I don't think that's right. I think Rocks can't really have a freeloader. It has to be an entire squad of absolute, and I mean absolute powerhouses, right? So Miss Buckingham has to be a powerhouse, man. I can't, like, she can be dumb as fuck, I don't care. She can be dumb, whatever. But she has to be a powerhouse, alright? I don't care. You can't have a Rocks pirate that's an absolute bum, alright? And there's just freeloading on that. That's one thing I can't really accept from this chapter, is they have a freeloader of the Vegapunk Mads group, which makes sense, right? Okay, she doesn't know anything about science, she's like a freeloader. But to have her be a freeloader in the sense that she's weak, I would not like. You can say now something happened and she's aged rapidly and she's just gotten weaker with age. But in her prime, I want her to be like on par with like prime Big Mom or something. Like, this is our Big Mom from the Rocks Pirates. Like, I would like if there was like a rivalry between them two, right? There was tension between them two, you know, and it might have caused some interesting dynamics. I do hope we get a Rocks flashback where we have like a POV with Rocks being like the protagonist and seeing where it goes, or maybe we might have Kaido be the protagonist because he's younger and we might get more information on Kaido through that. But I do want a Rocks flashback, and every single time we're getting more and more about them, I want to see more. Also, Weevil is definitely like Shiki's kid or like Shiki's clone. It's not Whitebeard. It can't be Whitebeard. They're building up the Whitebeard thing so much it has to be like Shiki or some other character from Rocks. It cannot be Whitebeard at this point. I would be disappointed if it was Whitebeard. At this stage in the story, I'm kind of like, alright, I would rather they pull it from under us and it's like it's Shiki. Because at least if it's Shiki, he can show up again and we can have some interesting interactions between Shiki and Miss Buckingham and Weevil. I do want him to show up though. I hope he shows up at some point. I just don't know when. I was hoping, like, because we were talking to the Lurking Legend in 1.0 and I was hoping that was going to be Shiki. I was like, oh, here we go. Like, I was like, okay, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I want to see. Let's go. I want to see some, like, Kaido getting backstabbed by Shiki or something and a big Rocks reveal. Like, there has to be something like that. I think one of the Rocks pirates has to be about to beat someone, and then Shiki just shows up and takes him out and is like, oh, I'm back. You know, that sort of thing. And I would really like that idea. Even if it's like... Also, are we going to get a Seraphim Shiki? Because they have his DNA. Why wouldn't they use it? They have his DNA from when he was in Impel Down, definitely. Don't tell me they don't have DNA for everyone in Impel Down. They're definitely going to use it. They have to, right? He's like a powerhouse. They would have had to use it at some point. Like, a private guard for the Gorosei is like a Seraphim Shiki or something like that. They have to use that at some point. There's so much I want to see with this story. There's a lot of different things I hope they approach with, what they do with it. I'm really excited. I can't wait to see how they approach it, what they do. But I don't know. I'm sitting here with like so many ideas going through my head. I'm like, at this point, when it comes to the story, I've just kind of gotten to the point where I'm along for the ride, right? I like to theorize, I do enjoy that, but it's just kind of, it's getting too hard at this point, man. Like, I I think Kaido, the build up for Kaido, and it's still weighing on my mind because obviously the anime is still covering the Kaido stuff. I'm just worried that we don't get that Rocks flashback that makes everything feel okay, makes the Kaido, everything that he was going on about in Wano, makes Kaido a much better villain. Like, I'm worried we don't get that. And I think that's just weighing on my mind a little bit as I keep thinking about Kaido and different things, even though Wano's gone now. We don't talk about Wano anymore, you know? I think we're going to get something really good for Kuma, and I'm excited for that. But that rock stuff, I really want that to happen soon. I want to see how I feel about it. I want to have it where all the Rocks pirates are absolute powerhouse. I think one of them being a freeloader just doesn't work for me. I feel like being a scientific freeloader is fine, but being an actual Rocks freeloader I wouldn't personally appreciate. So we'll see what they do with Stussy, but